Many have had a level of hope restored due to the work of this subcommittee. Have they? Well, let's ask Chief Sund, the former head of the Capitol Police, the author of Courage Under Fire, joins us now. Sir, good to have you back on the show.
Vince, it is great to be back on your show today.
Okay, so this report comes out, and on page 1, your name is mentioned immediately by Barry Loudermilk, who says that you were maligned here. Tell us what it reveals.
I got to tell you, Vince, I think the committee's done a great job. I think Barry Loudermilk's done a great job. When I got a copy of that sent to me and I opened it up and I got to page 1 and I saw that, I'll tell you, I've waited a hell of a long time to be vindicated and exonerated by Congress. To sit down there and look on page 1 and see your name listed to the word exonerated for what I've had to go through for the last 4 years has been incredible. So many people have had to go through. I don't, want to make myself a point of this, but, it is my name on that first page. And I feel bad for everyone that's had to suffer because January 6th. But to see that absolutely floored me. And I appreciate the hard work they've done. And, I got to tell you, Nancy Pelosi goes on national TV within hours of us regaining control of the Capitol and says it's a failure of leadership at the top. It calls me out by name, forces me to resign just months away from being eligible to retire, and strips me of all my benefits. And now it's all coming true. The facts are coming out. It's a good day when the truth finally sees the light.
So you actually don't get to collect your retirement benefits because of what Nancy Pelosi did?
No, don't. No, I have not been able to collect them. Now, some of the other people you may have heard, my intelligence, a person that was running some of the intelligence force was allowed to leave 5 months early and collect her retirement benefits. The general at the Pentagon, who was repeatedly denying me the ability to send National Guard to my assistance while I'm begging for assistance, even on the phone while Ashley Babbitt shot, retires. Everybody that is out there. We're now finding out Mark Milley had said to me specifically on the 3rd, he does not want military on the streets of D.C. There's so many people that stood in the way of us having effective security there in advance. And I got to tell you, Barry Loudermilk's investigation, he did 2 reports. The previous report specifically says if the Sergeant at Arms, and specifically Pelosi Sergeant at Arms, that denied me National Guard support in advance, had approved my request for National Guard, and I made multiple requests, they wouldn't have breached the Capitol. We wouldn't be here talking right now. So it was a cascading failure from the very beginning.
So what you're getting at is you talked about how you were trying to put the Capitol in a position where it was well prepared for anything, and you were denied. And then Nancy Pelosi, who is responsible for the security of the Capitol, then as Speaker of the House, who the Sergeant at Arms reported to, it was actually Nancy Pelosi's fault that things were in such disarray and not yours. And yet she turned around, scapegoated you, and deprived you of a retirement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only did they deny me in advance, and think about this, this is what shocks people. And this is one of the reasons I put the after action together and wrote, and I got to tell you, I've never seen a more read copy of my book, Courage Under Fire, than what Representative Loudermilk had, is the fact that not only am I denied on the 3rd, even on the 6th, while we're under attack, for 71 minutes, I repeatedly called almost a dozen times to the Sergeant at Arms and repeatedly was denied to bring in any support from my men and women. But I went ahead and said, I'm just going to go ahead and bypass. When I started calling every law enforcement agency I could, brought in 17 law enforcement agencies, 1,700 officers, and was still forced to leave.
Given everything you know now about all of the players involved, and that includes President Trump requested, it's now well established, the president pled with the Democrats to accept 10,000 National Guard troops to protect the nation's capital. He had asked for them to be ready on January 6th, and it was the Defense Department that created resistance. In fact, the Federalist summarizes some of the report today, saying Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller dismissed President Trump's January 3rd order to use any and all military assets necessary to ensure safety for the planned demonstrations on January 6th. That's the report says today. To date, no investigation or disciplinary action has taken place against Acting Secretary of Defense Miller for his failure to follow directives from the sitting commander-in-chief. Miller had reportedly told the Defense Department Inspector General, quote, "There was absolutely no way I was putting U.S. military forces at the Capitol." This came despite the fact that the government had placed federal troops in the Capitol during the prior summer to handle the George Floyd riots. And one more for you, Chief Sund, as I read through these. House investigators also reported that Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy, quote, intentionally delayed the D.C. National Guard response as demonstrators descended on the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. As given what we know in retrospect, who do you think are the bad actors here, and who do you think are the guys who actually had their heads on right?
So hearing that, my blood boils when I think about that, because Ryan McCarthy withheld the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force, 40 people that were trained for civil disobedience. The National Guard were with eyesight of the Capitol, and they wouldn't let them come for hours. And I was on the phone begging them, while the Pentagon started sending people to the generals' homes to protect them. You know, I've had a lot of people say, well, President Trump, he should have sent the troops. He delegated that authority to the Secretary of the Defense, who delegated it to the Secretary of the Army. He expected his subordinates to do their JOB, and they didn't. They sat on their behinds while they were watching us suffering up at the Capitol, and I was begging them for assistance, even to the point where when we had the shooting, I finally said, hey, we have a shooting inside the Capitol. Is that urgent now enough for you? And that was witnessed by, Mayor Bowser was on the phone, Chief Condi was on the phone, Colonel Earl Matthews with the military was on the phone, and they've now come out and spoken on my behalf, a number of them. So I'm just glad that the truth's finally getting out.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi, I mean, how much power does she have in this equation? If it's just a matter of if she asks for it, it happens. If she had asked for the National Guard, if she didn't deny you, then we would have had nothing like what we saw January 6, 2021.
100%. And the other thing, real quick, is everybody that messed up, no one has been had any discipline against them whatsoever. You're talking to the one single person in this whole January 6 equation that are working up there, or effectively in security or anything like that really had any form of discipline held against them. And I was the one trying to get assistance before, during the attack. So I'm sorry, your last question.
Yes. Oh, I was just saying about Nancy Pelosi. She's she really is the decision maker here, and she abandoned you. She abandoned the United States Capitol. She turned it over to chaos when President Trump was literally asking in advance for National Guard support to make sure that things went smoothly that day.
Right, and she carries a lot of. She's a very, very powerful person up on the Hill. Carried a lot of weight then. Could have easily made that happen if we had gotten approval on the 3rd. And I've worked with the Department of Defense. I've sworn in thousands of National Guard. That's what they're not aware of. I've done defense support for civil authorities many, many times. We would have done an assessment. They would have come over. We would walk the grounds. All I wanted was unarmed National Guard to stand the perimeter with my officers, because I only had 272 officers for the perimeter. That would have been an effective deterrent. Then we can talk about what happened with Intel. That's a whole other ballgame. But even just having the military, that would have been a game changer for us.
So a lot of people's lives have been destroyed as a result of the events of January 6th. And one of obviously the key takeaway here is none of that would have transpired were it not for the manipulation being done by the Democrats and various people within the United States Department of Defense. What would you like to see happen next, Chief Sund, now that we have the benefit of at least all of these facts coming out?
Well, I think it's the first sentence of the conclusion in the congressional report says January 6th was preventable. I absolutely agree with that. We need to make sure that the politicization, one, of the security on Capitol Hill is completely removed, and I don't think it is. Two, the politicization and the weaponization of lawfare, that's concerning. One of the things I talk about is not only January 6th, I talk about the 2020 riots. We had, January 6th was 5 hours of riots at the Capitol. The May 30th and June 1st, 2020 riots over at the White House was 2 days of riots at the White House. 186 people were injured. More officers were injured there, yet not a single prosecution. No. So that raised a lot of concerns there. So we need to watch out for that. I think when people lose faith in their Department of Justice and they feel the blindfold's been torn off, Lady Justice,
yes,
just create division in the country, and we need to somehow address that.
And Chief Sund, we're awaiting yet another report. Barry Loudermilk indicated in today's announcement that there will be a report on the alleged pipe bombs outside of the RNC and the DNC. They write that the subcommittee conducted an extensive review of the investigation into the two pipe bombs on January 5th and 6th, and that report is set to be released within the next few days. Does it boggle your mind that we haven't had any sort of meaningful, clear answers on that issue this many years later?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you go and you look at it, this is probably one of the most secure areas, one of the most secure cities in the world. Cameras everywhere, cell phone tracking capabilities, and the cell phone data is corrupted. We can't track a person. We can tell you exactly what time they're on their cell phone, but we can't go back. We can't track that down, but we can track down a number of other people. I think the cell phone, whoever placed the two pipe bombs, and they were identical pipe bombs, manufactured the exact same way, constructed the same way. So same person helped coordinate those and deploy them. That's the biggest key that's still outstanding, and I still can't believe we haven't been able to solve that yet.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of like drones hovering above New Jersey. There's a lot of suspicious disinterest in that story. Well, we'll see. Hopefully, Barry Loudermilk and company come out with something useful. In the meantime, Chief Sund, former U.S. Capitol Police Chief, author of Courage Under Fire. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate you joining us today for the breaking news.